Door.
Welcome to the Challenge Chronicles. I'm Devin Jordan. I'm with Rob McIntyre and Trace Armstrong. Looks like Rob McIntyre just left. We'll see if he comes back. Everyone was hoping to get an update on the event that he was at when he missed the last Patron episode. We are here to talk about episode 8 of the challenge, Ryder Dies. We're going to try something a little bit different this week. We're going to start off with the Fast Five, since it seems to be a crowd favorite, and then we're going to go on from there. So to let everyone know what the Fast Five is, it's kind of just our way that we kind of do a quick recap of everything that happens in the episode, just so we can say that we at least discussed it. Episode starts, Amber B comes back and she's happy that she won. Nelson says that he had to make a tough decision by throwing in Amber B and Chauncey. Amber B and Michelle celebrate in their rooms. They talk about how Nelson did a favor to her by blindsiding her and helping motivate her to win. I don't really get the amount of visibility that they gave the Amber B Michelle stuff this episode. It was so weird.
We haven't gotten into it because we'll get to it in a little bit. Weirdest storyline of the episode by far was how Michelle didn't give Amber a good enough hug, so they had like a feud.
And
Like,
people
what
wonder
was
why
that?
the cast doesn't like Amber. They wonder.
So
they
weird.
wonder.
I just don't get why they even added this in. There wasn't anything.
They
So
just-
I'll say it right now. I like this episode. I thought it was really good.
I thought it was good too.
Yeah, I thought it was a like borderline great episode. There was, if it wasn't for some editing and content like this, like, I mean, I thought it would have been like really, really good.
Maybe they just felt like they needed to give her something to do. Like she came with.
There's just more
I don't
interesting people they could focus on instead of that crap.
they just felt like that's would be my only thing. It's one, Michelle and Jay go home this episode, so you want them to have some visibility, but then also let's just give Amber something to do since she's been a no-show so far this season.
They say Nelson will get what's coming to him. Michelle says that Amber and Chauncey are her number ones. We get to the workout montage that happens seemingly multiple times an episode at this point. Nerese says that her and Nelson have been playing the game perfectly. After that, Nelson and Olivia flirt with each other. Olivia says that Nelson makes her feel special. I did think that they did a good job editing the build up to Nelson's decision at the end of the episode when it came to
great editing.
Yeah. Is Nelson like low key the best smooth talker in the history of the show? Every season he's got women like falling head over heels for him.
What are you talking about?
You don't think so?
No, not at all.
I was being selfish. Last season he had Smashy going crazy all about him. He had Berna all over him. Who do you have on?
I mean, I wouldn't say that Berna is exactly like a gem. Like, nothing against Berna, but like I think how much of everything that went on with Ashley do you think was her just trying to get screen time and was kind of just jealous because she was essentially only interested in Nelson because there was another girl that was encroaching on her territory. I think that's probably a lot of what it was.
They came in as like a quasi couple.
That's not what it sounded like. It sounded like they were like hooking up when they came into the house, and that's what was going on.
I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah, that's not what a couple is.
A quasi couple. That's in like I think that they came in. Yeah, they came in hooking up, and then she seemed to be under the impression she did not like what he was up to after they got started. So I just find it interesting that it seems like he as much as anybody on the show right now. It's just him and Fessy always have women that are falling all over them, seemingly.
We get a scripted scene in the next scene between Devin and Anissa. Devin tells Anissa that she works really well with Jordan. Conversation is completely staged. They show the history between Anissa and Jordan. And at this point in time, I think to myself, okay, well, I mean, I guess that this means that Jordan and Anissa are going to win the mission or they're going into elimination.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the comment that immediately follows that is Jay says that he is going to go in if Anissa and Jordan go in. So they completely telegraphed this.
It's just every time.
They need to cut this shit out.
This was dual one level foreshadowing.
This is the issue that I have with the editing this season and in the recent past. But I will say, like we did before, the editing that they gave with Nelson and the decision that he has to make between Olivia and Fessy this episode, very good. I really like how they built that up.
It's just my thing is like everyone who's watched the show beyond this episode knows that Jay and Jordan have had something of a feud, right? Like this is not like ground revealing information. Jay thinks he's going to get thrown in if Jordan would. We all know that. You don't need to tell us that. Like to make it that obvious is just tipping away people who actually watch the show.
They have a 40th birthday party for Johnny. Nani throws it for him. They sing happy birthday. I think this is a really cool moment. As Johnny goes up to the group, Horatio comes around him, and I don't know if he shoves whipped cream or cake on his face, but it's a funny moment.
It's cake.
Mariah goes up and gives him a kiss, and Tori says that she, at the end of the day, doesn't trust Johnny because he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And then they show another confessional with Chauncey and Amber B that pretty much reciprocates as much. After that, we get a conversation between Fessy and Nelson, and they talk about how Nelson's relationship with other people in the house and how he may have close relationships with other people in the house, but there are other people that have closer relationships with those people, which I thought was very interesting. And I think definitely kind of it speaks to the format of the game this season, where even if you have good relationships, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot because the amount of people that can get thrown into elimination. And we're at the point now where there are so many people that get thrown in relative to how many people are left in the house. Fessy says that he hasn't made up for betraying Nelson from season past, and that he feels like he shouldn't have done what he did in going in against Nelson in Hall Brawl. And Nelson pretty much says that he doesn't feel like he wants to he doesn't need to get payback for Fessy. So, I mean, they're pretty much telegraphing everything that goes on at the end of the episode.
But that's my only thing is it's just like, man, I wonder where this is going the whole time they're airing all this content.
We get to the mission. We're going to fly through the mission here. We don't really need to talk about much. Jay and Michelle do well. They montage through a bunch of people. They randomly show Devin and Tori go, which I thought was interesting. They show Johnny and Nani, and before Johnny and Nani go, I did not think this was going to be something that Johnny and Nani would do good at. Johnny surprises, does very well, and I think this may be evidence to the idea that he wasn't necessarily giving his best effort in some of the missions previously this season.
Well, I think that's part of it. I think he realized now that he probably honestly shouldn't have been sandbagging as much as he was earlier, because they did go up for elimination a couple of times. And I mean, like, I feel like if you've been experienced in the show, there's something you learn how to walk across cars, because that seems like something you're going to need to know how to do. Yeah. So he's probably much more experienced walking across cars than some of his more athletic younger cast members.
Yeah. Well, Johnny talks about how he does like a lot of gymnastics type training and a lot of agility style training. So like this is the type of mission that he can excel at with the type of training he does these days.
My main issue with this mission, as the cars think about it, like, we'll rag on that. This has been the first one they've really done this season. Hopefully it's not too many of them. Like the female part of this seemed very insubstantial. Like they went into the little car.
Do absolutely nothing. They do nothing.
The car, they grab the thing out and then they pull it back. I didn't see a single instance of any female who was like behind their male counterpart. Like they were always ahead, waiting for them to grab the thing. Whether it was Jordan and Anissa, Tori and Devin, everybody was well ahead of their male counterpart.
When I saw what the format of the mission would be, my initial reaction was, this is made for Jordan. And that's exactly what happens. Jordan and Anissa win, and as TJ tells them that they're the winners and that they need to go nominate 4 people to be up for interrogation and everything else that goes along with the people who win the mission, Johnny says, quote, "Gee, I wonder who the fuck they're going to be in regards to the people that are getting thrown directly in." I started dying laughing when that happened. I thought that was hilarious. We get back to the house. The Vet Alliance celebrates. Fessy says that he hopes that Anissa can save him. Jay asks Chauncey in the next scene if he should just start packing now to go into elimination. And we get into the deliberation. They came up with 3 names really quick: Jay and Michelle, Nelson and Maurice, Horatio and Olivia. And then it comes down to the final pair that should get thrown in, and they need to decide between Amber B and Chauncey or Fessy and Mariah. They decide to go with Fessy and Mariah, which we can talk about later, what we think about that decision. We get to interrogation, and there's a comical scene between Michelle and Jay and Anissa and Jordan. I think it was pretty, like, par for the course for Jay and Michelle, and I guess Michelle to try and say that they're still open to something potentially happening between them where they might be able to save each other in the future.
I thought it was interesting that she mentioned that there could be a twist coming up. They could shake up how the sides of the house look, which, based on TJ's commentary at the end of the episode, seems somewhat prescient. I mean, you got to try to do it because what else are you going to do? But it's going to be very difficult about that.
It's just the language that she uses. People don't trust her anymore because she says where we could potentially help each other out. That's not what they want to fucking hear. They need to hear you say, we will save you if we win again. That's what they need to hear. If you want them to listen to you at all, they don't need to hear you like give a bunch of qualifications on the ways in which you might be able to help them in the future.
It's like how the U.S. men's national team's official chant is "I believe that we will win" instead of just "I will win." You want to hear some confidence behind what they're saying.
It's just I don't know. Jordan pretty much sums up the reasons why Jay and Michelle ended up the way that they finished this season at the end of the episode.
And yes, I was going to bring this up.
But I think that's pretty much a summary of their season for the 8 episodes that they were on. We get to the next interrogation. Jordan tells Horatio and Olivia that they're kind of collateral damage in what's going on. And he tells them that they're not lucky, they're actually good. When Olivia tries to suggest that they're just happy to be there, and he kind of pushes home the idea that they shouldn't be happy to be there. They're actually a good team, which I think is definitely very true. In the next scene, we get Olivia and Mariah and Fessy in their interrogation. Of course, Fessy brings up the fact that when they won earlier in the season, they didn't put them in, given there were way more teams to be able to choose from.
Yeah.
And before that, I missed Nelson and Aris come in. They talk to Jordan and Nisa. And really what they focus on here is what they would do if it came down to picking between Fessy and Olivia. They don't even really talk about anything else beside that in their interrogation.
And again, like I didn't like this episode quite as much as the past 2 episodes. And I think the editing was a little over transparent this episode. I mean, the fact that they're focusing on this with Nelson and Aris, like, I mean, come on, man. Like, nobody is surprised that the editors started the episode when they're talking about this. And that combined with a relatively predictive outcome once Jordan and Anissa won had me a little bit lower on the episode, even though I still thought it was good compared to a couple other episodes.
After interrogation, we get a conversation between Fessy and Nelson, and he says that he was pretty much just looking for a reason that he could throw in. Does that happen now? Scratch that. Forget that. We get to Amber B talks to Chauncey. This is where Amber B talks about how she was upset that Michelle didn't give her the best hug. She didn't necessarily embrace her the way that she felt like she needed to be embraced. And
again, I say, and people wonder why the cast does not like Amber. These are the types of things they live with for 8 weeks.
Yeah, like think about that. You got to deal with Rob. You got to deal with this every day. That's the thing. Like,
did she engender any sympathy with her histrionics this episode? Like, you think anyone's like, wow, I really sympathize with Amber, but her friend did not give her a good enough hug when her friend was up for elimination. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, if you're a friend. Let's say your friend wanted to become an attorney and they failed the bar exam. They just found out they failed the bar exam. A lot of times the first reaction isn't going to be like, "Oh, I want to be warm," and you have to let them digest it how they digest the situation.
It's very self-centered and paranoid.
Extremely self-centered and paranoid. Yes.
We get the club scene. Nerisse says that she's excited to get to know Jordan, so this is building up to what's going to happen next episode, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. After that, Nelson and Mariah talk. Nelson talks about who he would pick if he pulled the safe card. Amber B, in the next scene, talks to Michelle, and they talk about the hug. And in bold in my notes, I can't believe I'm watching this. After that, Anissa and Fessy are together. Fessy says that he pretty much tells Anissa that he thinks it would be messed up if he's the main vote, based off of the history that they've had together. That's the end of the club scene. We get the workout montage. And after that, in one of the last couple of scenes before the elimination, Olivia and Horatio talk. Olivia says that she kind of sees the possibility that I don't necessarily get why they even throw threw this in because I don't think anyone was buying this, but she said that she could see the possibility of them being the team thrown in directly, so the three vets could have to fight over each other and turn. Someone had.
We literally just heard Jordan call her collateral damage, right?
Yeah,
like if somebody's collateral damage, they're not going to be the direct throw-in.
No.
Then she talks about how in the event that she is in the draw with Nelson, and Nelson were to pick the safe dagger, that she doesn't want Nelson to feel obligated to choose her. She wants Nelson to want to choose her, which I think there's a lot of credence to.
There is.
After that...
Yeah. I mean, from a gameplay perspective, I think at that point, to me, it doesn't matter. Like, choose me for whatever reason you choose me. We're looking at function here. But certainly in a relationship standpoint, obviously, you don't want somebody obligated to be with you.
Yeah. In the last scene before elimination, Nelson says that he doesn't want to make a decision between Olivia and Fessy. Nuri says that they don't want to pick the safe dagger, which I think is absurd. And
I mean, I think from their standpoint, I don't see... Like,
I guess you're right. Yeah.
They're so confident that the other parties are both going to pick them because they have no relationship to the other group, seemingly. So I can see where he comes from.
Yeah, I agree with that. Nelson says that he's put his feelings ahead of himself in the past, and that's why he's never won a final, which I kind of rolled my eyes when
the reason why he hasn't won a final is because he never took breaststroke lessons. That's why he hasn't won a final. If he just can swim on Invasion, he probably does CT.
We get to the elimination. Jordan gives his speech. They throw in Jay and Michelle. And this is where we get to the draw. Olivia and Horatio do not pick the safe dagger. And I thought it was kind of weird that after Olivia and Horatio do not pick the safe dagger and Fessy and Mariah do not pick the safe dagger, they kind of spliced in a maniacal laugh of TJ, like he's loving everything that's going on. And you know that didn't happen in real time. And I don't.
You also know he has no clue.
I don't get why they're trying to depict TJ in this way. Like, I don't think that's beneficial for the show as a product. Do you?
It's funny because I feel like in terms of how TJ is portrayed, we compare this to Survivor Live and how Probst is portrayed. Is like TJ is portrayed as this like maniacal overlord. This is how they want him to be seen. It's like, oh, this guy who's like in control of everything. He's at the control room. He's making the final. He's making all the missions. He's the one in charge of everything. We all actually know this is not the case. TJ is a jokey figure who they have around because he's easy to get along with. Whereas Probst, I feel like, is kind of the opposite, where they like portray him as like, oh, he's one of the cast. He's like with everything that's going on. And actually, he's really pushing the buttons behind the scenes. And
he's one of the big main producers of the show.
And by all accounts, he is very much driven towards making the show a good product and knows about pretty much everything that's going on. So I think that's an interesting dichotomy. For whatever reason, they just want to push TJ as he's like this titan in charge of everything that's happening.
Nelson has to pick between Olivia and Fessy. Johnny starts laughing. Johnny narrates the entire situation at confessional, and I think he did a really good job of that. Nelson says that Nuri says that she's going to let Nelson decide who to pick. Nelson saves Fessy and Mariah. We can wait to talk about whether or not we think that was a good decision or a bad decision. Olivia and Horatio will go in to elimination versus Jay and Michelle. The elimination spun out. I thought this was a great format for a mission. The veterans realize, or pretty much all the people rooting against Jay and Michelle realize, the more noise that they makes it more difficult for Jay and Michelle to hear actually what's going on. We never really got a good idea of how close this was. If someone told me that they got completely dusted in this, I would not be surprised, because it seems like it was just extremely difficult to communicate with your partner with the amount of noise going on.
Yeah, the other part of it too with any puzzle like this is how close are you at any point, really, right? Like Michelle and Jay could have just been going about the entire process the wrong way, or they could have had the puzzle correct and they just needed to move it like one thing over. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what they pretty much. I think the editors did a good job of that, right? Because at the beginning of the elimination, when Jay asked how many puzzle pieces there are, Michelle says there are 4 puzzle pieces, and then they go to a visualization where they count out 1, 2, 3 puzzle pieces.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because we're in this season, so I recognize them. I just feel like we've had a lot of eliminations be significantly impacted by crowd interference to this point.
Yeah, when we can talk about our larger
I feel like our opinions
on that.
Well, I guess so. Did you have an issue with it in this episode specifically?
Let's talk about it later. Let's talk about it later. It's come up in a lot of times recently. It came up in All Stars 3, and then did it come up in? Was that this season or was that
Spies, Lies, and Allies a lot?
Well, I think that this episode with the Turbo and Tamara elimination episode, it came up a ton.
Yeah, that's what
that
it was.
One. He just had no shot based on how the crowd was interacting. I think Jay and Michelle are in kind of a similar position here.
Let's finish this up. We're almost there. So Olivia and Horatio win. I guess something that I thought was really funny before they win, when Jay and Michelle couldn't hear each other communicating back and forth or speaking back and forth, Jay just turns to the stand and says, "Will you shut the fuck up?" He's pretty much just at his wit's end here, and he is not happy when he loses. He's a pretty sore loser, and as they lose, Jordan sums it up. He says, "This is not Survivor. You come back and play season after season if you're good. Your reputation stays with you. And if the game has taught them anything, they don't know how to play this game very well."
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty much what it comes down to for Jay and Michelle this season. That they tried to play both sides too much. They tried to make relationships, burn them, and hope they wouldn't come back to bite them. And that's just not the way that it works in the challenge. Because
I guess it's what do you think they should have done differently?
Dude, they fucked up so many times. They should have they needed to be more deliberate with how they played. That whole conversation that they had with Jordan and Nisa right before they go into deliberation to nominate teams, and then they throw in Jordan and Nisa right after they told them they wouldn't. Then a couple weeks ago when Jack and Laurel go home, they promised Jack and Laurel that they would not get thrown in again, and they go right back and break that. And while that doesn't necessarily affect them directly with Jack and Laurel, everyone else in the house sees that. Everyone in the house sees how they play, and that reputation stays with them.
Did they promise them they weren't going to go in again?
Yes, I went fucking back and watched it because you wouldn't believe me. I fucking watched it, dude.
Well, when did they promise that?
I fucking watched it. He says it right after they put their names up.
It was
right after.
Yeah, and he also, Jay just straight up said, "Hey, I won't throw you in again," and they did. He just straight up did. Okay. It was the beginning of the next episode.
It's funny because my thing was, I feel like their issue this season, particularly with how they played, if we look at more in a vacuum, I didn't think they weren't aggressive enough early. I thought the first time they went up and tried to and threw Kim and Colleen up there and didn't put up Bananas and Ani and, play a little bit softer. I think that was their issue. Because I think the way Jordan was framing it was they should have just kind of kowtowed to the vets and, played nice with us because we're going to be around here for a while. I think they would have been better off if they had just gone for the jugular a little bit earlier.
They should have just gone all the way in at the beginning and then not backstab someone in Jack and Laurel, who, even though Laurel had more ties to vets, she wasn't it seemed like Jack had some sway with Laurel. And so they could have just gone all in on their vet strategy. And I think the vets might not have liked it, but they would have at least respected them for playing the game and just going for it. I mean, they were so wishy-washy. That was the problem. You can't say one thing and then do another and then change your mind and act all tentative. They could have thrown in Bananas and Nani the first time, and then they threw them in the second time. You just got to shit or get off the pot and make a decision here instead of being all over the place. And they were just all over the place.
They just did not play a game that the veterans valued and respected. And
I just think trying to do that would have been a bad idea.
Trying to do what?
Play a game that the veterans respected or valued. I think that would have been a bad idea.
Because,
you can be more direct.
Not at all. Because Rob, they can play a game that the veterans value and respect by putting in Johnny initially. The veterans would respect that. That's not something that they would disrespect. It's just the fact that they're backstabbing people back and forth, and no one can trust them. That's what they don't respect.
Yeah,
because if there's anything that we've learned, that is not an effective strategy in this game.
No, it's not. And here's a good example. Here's a great example. Free agents, Johnny Bananas and Johnny Riley. Johnny Bananas would throw him in. Johnny Riley would try to throw him in, and he would, they went back and forth. And towards the end of the game, Bananas was like, "Hey, I at least respect you for sticking to your guns with your boy." And then at the end of the season, the next year, they kind of worked together a little bit. Why? Because Bananas at least appreciated that Riley stuck to his alliance and stuck to his guns.
Exactly. And so I could see a scenario where Jay and Michelle do what you said. They throw in Johnny and Nani the first time. They throw in vet heavy hitters for that first time. They do it the second time that they're able to. And they end up going home. They're not wishy-washy. They are very matter-of-fact about the situation and say that, hey, we know that we're on the bottom of the veteran alliance. It is what it is. We think that this is our best chance to win. And they ultimately get sent home this week. And moving forward in future seasons, the veterans see that they're able to stick to their guns. There's someone that they can trust, and they can work together moving forward. If Jay and Michelle come back, they have no trust with any of these people. They might be able to work with Nelson. They might be able to work with Fessy. But by and large, this cast as a whole will not trust them and will not work with them.
We'll just have to see what situation they come back. And one thing I thought was interesting, Michelle did like an Instagram live with Jay after the episode, and she had talked about how the show had portrayed that like the four that were put up there, so their pair, and then Nelson Nerys, Fessy and Mariah, and Horatio and Olivia, they were all very, very tight throughout the season. She said that was actually like the core four of that alliance, and we had wondered why they hadn't targeted Fessy and Mariah at all. I would think that would have been the reason why.
Definitely.
So I think they may have had. It seemed like they may have actually had a little bit more of a foothold than I would have even expected coming again. I just think that they should have just. It's like putting Kim and Colleen up there was the one real glaring mark to me, the second time around. And also, I mean, looking back on it too, like when Nelson and Nerys were up there the first time, should they have? If they were going to eventually end up siding against Johnny and Nani and Jordan and East, they probably should have just done that from get go too, because they had power before Jay and Michelle did.
Yep.
If you know that you're going to do that, why not do it then? It doesn't make sense. Like if you know that you're going to have to turn on them, unless you can just make the argument that at that point in the time when they came to power the second time, there weren't enough people. They had to say their names.
Yeah, but it was always going to get to that position, right?
Yeah.
I think if you're going to reach that point, especially at just the midpoint of the season, if you're going to have to reach that point, I think you're probably just better off moving in that direction from the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
The thing is, if you're them, you're kind of an underdog already. I feel like you have to kind of be willing to take a couple risks early on.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the reason why both teams made the decision that they did the first time that they came to power is they were playing not to lose. They wanted to make a decision that essentially wouldn't lose them the game immediately, instead of making the decisions that would maximize their probability to win.
Would they have been better off just not winning those two missions, or you think that they just would have been up there anyways?
Yes. I think they would have been better off, for sure.
I just feel like if almost any other team wins those, though, that they're probably just directly in.
I mean, not if Nelson and Fessy win. Or potentially even Devin.
Yeah, potentially Devin. I mean, we just saw that they were up there when Bananas and Nani won that second week elimination, that they were in the mix already. I don't see how that would really change this time and gone forward.
Yeah. Well, to kind of circle the wagon back a second too, it's such an interesting contrast between how the cast feels about Jay and Michelle versus Horacio and Olivia. They seem to really respect their game and respect their performance, and it's like, we're going to keep throwing you in, and they're like, okay, we've picked our side, and so we're going to ride or die on this side until it's over with. They're not being shady. They're playing a straight up game with the people they're playing with. And I mean, Jordan was like glowing in his comments about Horacio towards the end of this episode. Yep. And so I think that if they want to come back, and production brings them back, they will be in a much better position next season, because even with the fact that they pick their side, they keep winning. They've won missions, they have won eliminations, and they keep coming back.
It's been 3 eliminations for them to this point, right?
Yep, they've won. Won a daily and 3 eliminations.
They haven't won a daily yet, have they?
They did.
Yeah, they did.
When they win?
Didn't they win one really early on?
They won either episode 1 or 2.
Johnny and Raven won
close to winning.
No. Johnny and Raven won episode 1, and then they came really close to winning the one Bananas and Nani won.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything that you said. It shows that if they were to come back, I think the veterans are much likely to work with them in future seasons. They'll be in a much better spot in future seasons than they are now. And even though they've been in elimination so many times, 2 out of the 3 times, the veterans helped them so much that it made it almost impossible for the other team to win.
Yeah.
And it's because they respect the game that they play, and they can tell that they have potential. And that's why they found themselves in the good position that they're in right now. Let's get into the larger conversation of this elimination, the veterans helping out Horacio and Olivia, and essentially making it impossible or close to impossible for Jay and Michelle to win. I said it when Turbo was eliminated earlier this season. I said it when Beth was eliminated by Janae in All Stars 3. We need to cut this shit out. I was happier than anyone that Jay and Michelle went home and got their comeuppings.
I think it's so much a worse show with them gone, though, right?
Hold on, we'll get to that. I was overjoyed that it actually happened because we do get the culmination of their storyline and them going home, and the narrative arc is complete of them trying to play both sides and making these wishy-washy agreements that they go back on, and it finally coming back to bite them in the end. I think that's a very clear narrative arc. Let's talk about crowd interference coming into play in the eliminations, and if we think that it's finally to the point where they need to do something about it. I think they need to do something about it. I don't think this should be the house versus another pair. I think this should be the pairs that are in elimination.
Because, I mean, the thing is, too, is so much of the game already boils down to the house ganging up on a pair or two, right? So much of the mission, so much of the politics always ends up seemingly being a pair or two on the outside, and then everybody else ganged up against them. And the elimination is supposed to be one way out of it, like Wes is one way out on the Ruins, or CT's one way out. He was the ugly duckling. So, I mean, what do you think the answer is? Is just production yells at them when they start interfering too much?
Yeah, Tom, you can't do this shit. I completely agree with you. This is supposed to be the one time that you're able to overcome everything else that's going on in the house, and it comes down to your ability. And that's not what's happened multiple times in recent past. And I think that they just need to police it better.
Because the thing is, you could like bubble them, or like, you know, you can siphon them off if they can't watch it all. You could bubble them where, I don't know, you do something where like they're able to see it, but they're separated from the actual elimination and stuff. But you want the cast interacting. Like, reason why we love so much like the Benedict Laurel elimination, or like the Hellraiser elimination between Hunter and Georgia and Chase and Ashley, is to crowd in being involved in that elimination to a degree. So I wouldn't want to take that away. I just think you can find a way where I just think you just yell at them if they misbehave.
Yeah, I was about to say, just have TJ blow the horn and say, "Hey, y'all, shut the fuck up there." All right, start back.
If it gets to the point where whatever someone in the crowd is doing is benefiting one of the participants or multiple of the participants in the elimination, if it's benefiting them, you need to tell them to get the fuck out of there. Just take them out of there.
You can just toss them out. Yeah, just chuck them.
Yeah, you got to go.
Eject them. You can eject them. You can disqualify them for the next mission. You can do so many things. Think about the loosey-goosey stuff like on Double Agents when they got mad at the guys cast for not trying to do in the mission when the girls all like actually DQ'd themselves and fell off the rock or whatever they were on. They penalized them for so much less infractions than this.
So both of you are of the belief that they should do something about it at this point, that it's gotten to that point? Okay.
It's gone too far.
I feel like when Beth and Janae had their elimination in All Stars 3, that you guys weren't necessarily there yet, right?
I hope my position on this has stayed somewhat consistent. My stance is just like, I don't begrudge the cast for doing it. Like I
no, not at all.
I didn't mind that MJ helped her out. And my thing is just like, this has kind of always been how it's been. That doesn't mean it's good necessarily. Things are supposed to change sometimes for a reason. So that's. Yeah, if they made some efforts to get rid of this, I would not be at all crying.
And I think this actually might be an aberration this season because, you know, I know the Turbo elimination was similar, but for like the puzzle ones they've done besides this one, they've positioned the puzzle so that the cast can't really see it, and so they can see them competing, but they can't really tell what the puzzle is, and so. I mean, this isn't like Gauntlet 3 where Frank's trying to help Katie win, you know. It's
the
not
other
that.
thing, too, is like, usually it's a worse outcome when the house probably doesn't come back, right? Like, I would have liked Turbo to stick around for another episode or two to see what would have happened if he had hung around in the house.
I mean, let's play this out. Let's say that Jay and Michelle win, Olivia and Horacio go home. I mean, I don't know. They're still in the same exact position. Nothing really changes.
Well,
Nothing changes, but it's just
this
contentious.
has to happen sooner or later, and I think this was a good way for them to go out.
Let me put it this way: Jay and Michelle stuck around way longer than I expected them to. So I guess even their shitty game, they still hung around.
I mean, this is like a little bit longer than we expected them to, right? Because we thought all of the rookies would go home, and then
Horacio still keeps hanging in there.
And then it was going to be Amber B or
them,
Jay and Michelle.
Yeah,
and so they stuck around a little bit longer. I mean, we're only
what, number 8.
We're halfway through the season. You know, this is about where we thought it was going to be like 6.
I thought
so we're 2 episodes off.
I thought it was going to be like episode 4 or 5.
Yeah,
they've gone a little bit more than they probably should have.
They overachieved compared to what I thought they would do, but they're exactly where we thought they would be. It's just they hung around a little bit longer because they won 3 missions. So,
yeah, and they were friends
or
with
2
Nelson
missions. Excuse me.
They won 2, and they had Nelson win 2, so they had a good friend in the cast. I do think that I was talking about this a little bit last week. Just like Nelson and Reese coming up and winning 2. I just think some of this is a little bit more random. Like I don't think Nelson's actual challenge capabilities deserve that he. How many did he lose in a row before he won 1?
Like 50?
50 some.
Like I don't think he's actually that bad.
No, definitely not. And he's not good enough to win two in a season. I think there's a regression to the mean there.
Yeah,
but
you know one thing about here's one thing about Nelson that bothers me. It's very clear that in his confessionals they coach the fuck out of him. Like it is so unnatural. When Dirty 30 happened and he said the needy greedy line or whatever season that was, I think it was Dirty 30.
It was Final Reckoning.
Okay, Final Reckoning. That's probably why I blocked it out. But on Final Reckoning, when he did the needy greedy line, it came across naturally just Nelson being an idiot. And the way he said it in this one is it was like they fed him the line so they could film it because he didn't put any, like, there was no, like, it just felt real phony.
Is he like Coach the third time around where Coach knew too much about Coach, so he was leaning in a bit too much?
No, Coach was at least still funny, right?
Yeah.
He at least was.
I still find him funny.
Nelson, I don't know, dude. If at this point in time, I joked around about it in an episode earlier from this season that Nelson reads from cue cards. If you found out that he reads from cue cards, would you be surprised?
After this episode, no, because I mean,
we
seriously,
know that's happened in the past, not with him specifically. We're not with him at all, actually, but we know that other cast members have basically like somebody. I think it might have been Wes talked about like the production, like had him work with other cast members and like give them little instructional things, taking professionals with them.
Yeah,
that's good.
And as they should.
Is it good? I don't know if that's good.
Yeah,
no, I think they should have him coach them up, right, and be like,
sure.
Be like, this is what makes for a good confessional. This is what you want to talk about. This is kind of like how you can let your personality play up a little bit more. I think they should have someone that does that professionally. Like that's their job. Yeah. This is 20 to 30% of the show comes from confessionals. I think that they should do whatever they can to make that content as good as possible.
Well, my take was just they should bring on people who are better personalities. They don't need cue cards from Wes saying here's the notes.
Well, we all agree on that. I mean.
Kenny
did this great podcast once where he talked about after his first season, he realized the key to being recast over and over again was to do great confessionals. Because if you can look into a camera and you can pitch what's going on and you can be funny and you can make light of things going on in the house, they're going to bring you back because confessionals make up so much of the airtime of an episode. Like it's what helps drive the narrative around what's happening. So if you are really good at confessionals, they're going to cast you again. See Anissa. I don't particularly love Anissa, but the reason they keep casting her is, well, she's got a lot of friends in production, but it's also because her confessionals, she helps drive narratives really well. It's why they cast Jimmy so freaking much, is the same reason for stuff like that.
I cast whom?
Jimmy.
I think you said Jimmy. I'm like, who's Jimmy? I don't even know who this person is.
Jimmy cracked corn, Rob. That's who it is. No, Jimmy. Sorry, I'm tired. I've been moving. My back hurts. My IT band needs to be rolled out.
It's funny that it feels like Anissa and Jordan, we've got as much background into like why they're such a great pair as much as anybody, when they're by far the pair that makes least sense as a pairing.
I'm going to say this, and I don't want anybody to interpret this as mean, but I think the challenge editors did the perfect job of illustrating the two members of this team They cut to Jordan in his ugly shirt with his little half mullet thing on the bike. And then they cut to Anissa sitting at a table eating.
It was funny because at one point you called Anissa, like, I feel like you need to couch this because people got mad at me when you called her the cockroach of the challenge. I just find
She
it funny that
is.
Jordan called. Can you explain why?
Because no matter how many times you try to kill her, she keeps coming back.
Okay, I just need you to say that because people got mad at me last time you said that. I just want to.
I don't mean it in a mean way. It's a funny way to illustrate her career. Like, just when you think, oh, they'll never bring Anissa back, here she comes.
It's true. Total Madness man. Anissa is back in the fold.
She tears her knee to pieces, and where is she? She's back on the show again.
Because Jordan called themselves the cockroaches of the season. I'm like, oh wow, maybe he's been watching the show.
Maybe they're listening to us. I'm just saying, it's it's a trendy thing to do.
By the way, we got another zero burger from Kenny. Do we think something comes out that he's like, a secret Illuminati member, and they found out while they were filming the show, and that's why he's not allowed to be out doing anything, or is he just that boring?
Do you think it's gotten to the point where they don't even have him come in for confessionals? They're just like, we're good.
Whatever. Well, they've literally.
I mean,
they're so invisible this season. It's so. I mean, I'm happy about it. First of all, for the record, I'm really happy that I don't have to listen to Casey bore me to death throughout the episode. But like, they're not even showing us like Nani and Casey having a date night. Thank God.
wow.
But like, and it just goes to show that without those forced storylines, she really doesn't bring anything to the show other than she can make it to the end. Like, she's like paint drying on this episode or on this whole season.
Guess what the last episode Kenny had a confessional was?
3.
7.
6.
Oh, it's 3. It's been that long.
He had one in 6 when they were in elimination, didn't they?
I didn't have him written down as one when they were up for elimination. He talked at one point because he talked in the interrogation, so he can't speak. But I did not have him down.
Yeah, that's what you remember is he spoke a sentence during the interrogation. that is.
Oh, I kind of hope they're the next pair to go. Not even really any ill will towards them, but they are a team with some equity in the house just because who they have relationships with, and they're just such a waste of space at this point.
That's why I didn't get why you guys thought that they were in trouble to go home early.
Well, they were up for eliminations.
Yeah, pretty much everyone in the house has been up for.
I
elimination
just think
at
the
this point.
format works.
Who hasn't been up for an elimination at
this
point?
format works against them. That's why I thought they might be gone sooner. Is because I feel like they are a weak overall team. Not that Casey is weak, but that the two of them together are a weaker pair. What have they done in the dailies? Like jack shit. They've been at the bottom of like all of these dailies.
No, they almost won. They almost won the first one that they were in when they came back.
I don't even remember that, to be honest with you. I really don't.
The one where they like swung on the rope, like.
Sure, I'll take your word for it.
The one that.
They're all the fucking same.
So my take was just I feel like of these like teams that we consider the chosen few of this season, I feel like they were the weakest, and I feel like when one of these outsider teams,
talking about the chosen few, what
just the ones that we think have all the power in the house.
Yeah, but that still like puts them pretty high up if they're part of that group.
My point was just if one of these outsider teams won and they targeted that group, I think they were the weakest. So I think if one of them goes home, it's going to be them.
You said something last time, and I definitely think it's very true, that I think this is less a season of alliances, and it's more so the personal alliances that you have, right?
Yeah.
It's like...
You just need good personal connections.
The people that you're closest with aren't necessarily... So like if... let's say if Casey is closest with Fessy, etc., that doesn't necessarily mean the people that Casey is closest with are the same people that Fessy is also closest with.
Oh, true. Because like Nelson and Jay had been targeting Casey to some level, and then we know that it seemed like Fessy's primary relationships were with Jay and with Nelson, but that he would not be targeting Casey if he was in a powerful position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I definitely think we've seen that pour out, and I think that's probably the way it's going to continue. Unless we knew that it would happen.
We have to talk about this, yeah.
We knew that they wouldn't be able to help themselves, or at least I said that they wouldn't be able to help themselves. We're going to get a twist next week. I swear to fucking God, if they go to individuals or make it so that 4 teams aren't going into the draw, like help me God. What
So
what is your prediction on what it's going to be?
I think they're going to throw in whoever finishes last automatically into elimination or automatically into the draw.
Okay.
I could be fine with that. So the episode is called Split Decision. We all know that, and we know in a little preview for next week, TJ says that the winning teams have some outsized power. This is the exact same verbiage, not the same episode title, but the same sort of explanation that were given when on Bloodlines they went to the blue team versus the red team,
God,
and it
fucking
ruined
kill
this.
me.
And it ruined the season. It was a horrendous format. It was. I mean, second graders could have designed a more cohesive gameplay format than that was, where it just didn't even make sense for teams to win on certain days.
Yeah, and
so that would be my fear. I don't really know. I'm trying to think of what else it could be if that's the case.
the only thing that gives me hope is when they flash to the daily, the same teams were working together. So we're gonna
I think
hope.
it occurs after the daily. I think this split, whatever this split is, occurs after the daily.
Oh God, I hope not, because I mean, let's be real. This season's not perfect, but it's been pretty dang good. Like, I've really enjoyed this season, and if they do this, it's gonna fucking ruin it.
They're finally to the point where they really have to start making tough choices. And if they're gonna blow this up now, all of this was for fucking nothing. Pretty much.
Because I mean, we just look at how Nelson Clee didn't want to throw Amber B in, but he felt like he had to, and that caused enough of a fissure where she eventually just went straight in because they got upset at each other. My preference would certainly be that I would be if they add like a last place goes in and then something changes slightly with how people voted. I'd be okay with that. But to go to team, if they go back to the team's format that Bloodline used, that would be moronic. There would be no defense of that. We all know that didn't work when it happened.
Because let's play this out a little bit. Let's say that Kenny and Casey win next week. Who are the pairs that they're throwing in here? They're going to throw in.
They're going to throw in Horacio and Olivia.
Well, are they? Is she going to throw in Amber B? Would she?
Yes.
She might.
See, that's what I mean. We're already like at a tough decision. They're going to throw in Horacio and Olivia.
I think
they're going to throw
Nelson
in
and
Nelson.
Nurys have done enough to.
They're going to throw in Nelson and Nurys, and they're probably going to throw in Devin and Tori.
Oh, they might. What about Anissa and Jordan?
They're not going to throw in Anissa.
They would put Anissa and Jordan and have Devin and Tori. I'm sure.
That's what I mean.
Relationship with them.
That's a tough call.
People have to start shooting at each other, and if we blow up this format now, it's fucked. This format made for a bad start to the season, and I think it had the ability. And I said this the last time we recorded that it has the ability to make for a good end of the season. And if they're going to just throw it all away now, like what the fuck?
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing.
If you had to put money down on it, what would you put money down on?
I just don't know. I'm just trying to read the clues that have been given to us. I can't bring my head to think they would do the Bloodlines teams format again. That was such a disaster when they did it.
I even think they admitted it was a disaster at one point.
It just makes no sense to anyone with a functioning brain. It just does. Like, there's just no way you can explain that to like, oh, this is going to make interesting gameplay. This is going to make you actually want to watch missions going forward. But again, the fact is, call a split decision. We know that the teams get power. We understand that seemingly this twist is not occurring until after the mission happens. I'm just struggling to see what else this could be.
What if you can switch pairs?
Yeah,
God, I hope not.
I could do. I mean, that's better than something else. I mean, that would really throw things out of whack too, from a mission perspective. My phone's, of course, about to die. One issue I've been having, people, I apologize, is my phone's battery has been depleted towards like 35% of what it was before, and it also won't charge with the USB port. It only charges with those like cordless chargers. So I'm just leave it lying around for most of it. I can't even have access to it.
Sounds like Rob needs a new phone.
It's been a consideration.
He just got this fucking thing. It's not even that old. What is it?
I got it last December.
Did you try like cleaning out like the port?
You done compressed air in the port?
Huh?
Seriously.
I haven't done compressed air.
Do compressed air in the port.
You gotta get like a.
Don't do the toothpick because you can damage the metal. You can damage the connector.
Carefully, though. Take it in and have them do it for you. You got to get one of the like a paper.
Who's them?
Like, clean it out.
The Apple geniuses.
You can have them do it. You can have your grandma do it. I'm sure she could probably handle it.
Do they actually know what they're doing? The Apple geniuses. I always get the idea that they're just some like people they hired off the street. They have no credibility.
They go through a lot of training. My sister actually works in Apple corporate,
Really?
and she used to assistant manage an Apple store in Charlotte, and they go through a lot of training for that job. There are
See,
the people at the front of the store, they're just the talking head. They're like nerds in the back that do all the actual work.
okay, interesting. I always got the idea that this was just some jabrones they bought off the street.
No,
And
they
just
have
had to
actual
click a
like
couple
real
buttons.
technicians that go through a lot of training that do that work.
Interesting. Okay. Could
It's
I
not
become
like
an
the
Apple
Best
genius, or would
Buy
that be a step
What is
too
it?
far?
What is it? The Best Buy
Geek
what do they
Squad?
call them? The Geek Squad.
Squad?
Yeah, that's not the Geek Squad. Those people are a joke. Sorry to any Geek Squad members that are listening.
Could I become an Apple genius, or is that a step too far?
You would have to take a massive pay cut.
Okay.
How much do you think they make? I have a guess.
Oh, I know how much they make.
Well, it depends on
Rob,
the
give
area,
your
I would
guess.
assume.
Yeah,
I
it
have
is
a
based
guess.
on region.
Oh, well, there's no point to guessing then.
Well, anything's based on region.
Like
I
if you're in
mean,
the Mid-Atlantic region, 50.
That's what I was gonna say, like 55.
like where I am.
Yeah. Well, maybe not
Living in a
DC,
box?
but like Charlotte.
Okay. Because Mid-Atlantic, yeah, you have to specify Mid-Atlantic. If you're in DC and making
Northern
50, you're in a
Virginia is
box.
not Mid-Atlantic. Northern Virginia is just Northern Virginia. It's just its own thing.
It's its own economy. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last piece of information that we need to talk about before we leave. What we saw in the trailer for episode 9 that will air next Wednesday. Jordan
and Tori getting mad because Jordan starts hooking up with Nurries.
This is gonna be
Yeah,
good.
this was gonna break at some point, right? I mean, just clearly based on the what had been going on this season, I just had there was no chance to me that they were just gonna be simpatico all the way through. Like I don't want to speak on their own personal lives because we only know so
You
much.
should.
But
Speak on their personal lives, Rob.
so it very much appears from what we've been told that Jordan broke up with Tori, and Tori, I think it said as much as she didn't want to break up when they did, and it took her a long time to recover from that. It just seemed I just feel like Jordan's kind of a wild Bronco that's not going to be tamed in certain ways, and it's going to cause some problems.
Yeah. There's more to that story, but you know, it is what it is. All right.
Do we think this will
Yeah,
actually affect gameplay or no?
No.
No, not at all.
I just don't.
Unless the fundamental structure of the game changes, then it has the
I guess
potential
that's
to.
true.
But the way that it's currently constructed, no, because
my thing was just she wouldn't put Anissa in.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I thought that changes. And the one thing is, if this is like some pair gets to choose who to pick, I mean, I'm sure any female partner would love to have Jordan as a partner, right? So, other than anybody, but a lot of people would.
What do you think the most likely outcome for the shakeup of the game next week is? If you had to
talked
put
about
money
it a little
down,
bit. I just am trying to see is it like whoever wins can decide to just take their portion of the money and walk off like they did on Are You the One? I just hasn't been the season's been built to this point.
I don't know what it's going to be because who the fuck knows with these people. But my hope is that if you come in last place, you're automatically going in, and then the other, there's no more safe dagger shit. It's like there's 4 teams that get called in, 1 team that loses automatically goes in, and then they're going to choose one of the other 3.
I mean, we saw in All Stars 3 that they shook up the format mid-season. They actually went the opposite of that, where they started out last place was going in, and the tribunal would pick who would go in against them, and they switched to a male-female alternating format where you were picking you were picking one person, they were picking somebody to take in with them. So I think that type of switch is very likely on the table.
what if the shakeup is that Ayana comes in as a mercenary?
And Ayana and Tech show up? I'd be all about that.
It would be hilarious, but I don't think it would be a great mercenary elimination.
Well, they don't have to be coming in elimination. They just let Darrell and Veronica and Jordan and Anissa just walk on.
Yeah.
What if it's a Greek salad eating contest?
A Greek salad stealing contest. It's like hidden around the zone. You have to find out where they are.
I think the more likely scenario of that would be like the mercenaries coming in would be like Derek and Jody or Brad and Jody or something like that. I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening for the record, but
I don't think anyone
they
really
blew up by not just biting the bullet and having Paulie and Cara show up, right?
They really did. They should have. I mean, I saw something really interesting though that basically said like if Cara would just stop putting stupid shit on Instagram, and this was a quote from
Yeah.
Wes, if Cara would quit putting stupid shit on Instagram, she'd already be back on the show.
Yeah, I saw that too. I didn't see it directly from him, but I saw like a pink roast of some of the actual inside sources on there, was just like the reason why Jordan was left back on and Paulie and Cara haven't yet is Jordan plays ice production and doesn't post dumb stuff on social media anymore, and Paulie and Cara are very difficult to deal with in production from what we've been told, at least Cara is, and then continue to post dumb stuff on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I could definitely see that.
So I did get the full scoop though on, you know, what happened with the Total Madness thing, but I don't necessarily know we should talk about it on air.
What Total Madness thing?
Why Paulie didn't make it. Because
I mean,
he and Cara were going, and then Paulie got pulled, and then Cara said she wasn't going without Paulie, so they were like, "All right,
I feel
bye."
like we all kind of know what happened there to some degree.
Kind of, but it was more than that. It apparently involved the reunion for the previous season, World Worlds 2.
I think that's pretty common.
Is it common knowledge? Okay, so basically, I'll just say it then. Allegedly, the night of the reunion, Paulie was flying high off the rails on coke, and the whole little shimmy dance and all that stuff is him high on blow. And the cast apparently got super rattled because he was being erratic, and they had to really edit that reunion because Paulie was just so off the rails. And then at the after party afterwards, he was making a lot of the cast feel super uncomfortable. And then when that Instagram video hit, that was kind of like the, hey, we don't want this motherfucker coming because we just don't know what we're getting with him. Like, we're actually kind of scared for his mental stability at this point. And so people claimed he quote unquote failed his psych exam. I heard that it was just the cast was really worried. The cast was really worried about him coming because of the way he had acted at the reunion, and then he did that bizarre Instagram post.
I mean, so I think basically how the story's been pitched is everyone has talked about basically from when it happened that the rest of the cast, who knows what the rest of the cast consists of? It could have been 2 people, It could have been 7.
It could have been Bananas and one other person.
Because so much of the world was to actually go back and look at it. It basically just isn't casted on seasons anymore for one reason or another. But it's widely said that a lot of them got together and said, told production, we're not going if Paulie's going. And then production decided Paulie's not going to go. Why they did that? I mean, of course, Cara and Paulie say that it's because they didn't want to have to compete with Paulie and Cara anymore since they had kind of ran the past couple of seasons. And then people from the opposite side say that Paulie's just too much of a wild card and they don't want to have to interact with him around the house. So there's differing opinions on what their reasons are for that. I'm sure it's a multifaceted issue. But that has been said for a while, that the rest of the cast got together based on his actions on the reunion.
But they were close. They literally were... He was close. They were this close to being on Ride or Dies. This close.
He was on the documentary. So it seems like there's been some bridge that's been made. Do you want to do power rankings real quick before my phone decides to explode?
Yep. Let's do them. I don't think it's changing from last week.
You got to turn off all notifications on your phone before we get on.
I did.
Why the fuck are you going black then?
Because it tells me low power mode is initiated because the battery is too low. You can't. I don't know if you can get rid of that one.
You can't.
You can figure out how to charge your phone while we're doing this.
Well, I told you,
a new phone.
The USB doesn't work, and then
that's what I'm saying. You got to figure that out. That's what
I just want you to take it to the Apple store so that they can go, what the fuck have you been doing to this phone? Like, really? Like, what the fuck?
I just don't know how much I trust Apple geniuses.
All right. Sure, we can do power rankings. I'm not writing them down, but Rob.
All right.
I still have Tori and Devin 1. I don't know. I guess the one thing you worry about with Nelson and Maurice now is if they're just going to be the team we have some excuse to throw in for the rest of these power teams. So I think I feel good about them being number 1. I can still say I don't feel great about anybody else. I think I'd still go Nelson Maurice 2, Johnny 93, and Fessy Mariah 4. But I am not confident at all in that setup.
I'm going to do Tori Devin 1 again, Banani 2. I'll go Fessy and Mariah 3, and then Jordan and Nisa 4, just because I think those are the 4 teams in the final.
I don't feel great about Nelson and Maurice anymore. They're as good as I did coming out of last week. I think the people that I would have as a top 3 in no particular order are Tori and Devin, Fessy and Mariah, and Johnny and Nani, probably. What order I would have them? I guess I would go Tori and Devin, Fessy and Mariah, and then Johnny and Nani. I think what Fessy said to Nelson this episode in the conversation that they had before the mission is kind of what I had suspected. And it's kind of what Nerys hinted at when they were doing their swimming workout, that Nelson has a lot of relationships in the house and he's friends with seemingly almost everyone that's left. But there are a lot of other people that he has those relationships with that have people that are closer to them than Nelson.
Well,
it's just going to be interesting to see how that bears out.
It was a really weird strategy from he and Jay to like put Bananas and Nani up for elimination, but then not actually just throw them in directly, right?
Yeah, that was really
like.
stupid
I just feel like
part.
if you're gonna say you're not on the same side as them, they should just be your number one target. So that was. Hey, I wish we got more of an explanation for why he put in Amber B and Chauncey. Was it just an emotional decision, or was it like something he and Bananas agreed to?
Devin wanted it to happen.
No.
That seemed like what it was.
Devin was doing this, puppet stringing the whole thing.
I'm just curious if Bananas and Nani had some agreement they reached with him that we didn't see, and that's why they didn't get put in. Because it just doesn't make sense at all to me. Even from Devin's perspective, okay, great, Amber's talking badly about you. You know, it's supposed to everybody else in the house, and just don't hear about anybody else. That they wouldn't just put Bananas and Nani or Jordan and Anise directly in, and then Bananas and Nani get thrown in by Darrell or Amber.
Well, to close the loop on Jay and Michelle played a stupid sloppy game. They went from Bananas and Nani going, wow, I think we owe Jay and Michelle one for not putting us in, to them throwing them in the next time, but then they didn't throw them in. Like, it just, what are you thinking? What are you doing?
Okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you again next week when we talk about Ride or Dies, episode 9. Have a good weekend. Bye.